Hello and welcome to this week's Hippie Hyena. In this week's news, a plastic potato is neither male nor female, and the right wing are kind of upset about this.
Bigotry has been demolished, annihilated, removed from the planet in one foul swoop. The removal of a French fry and tater tots, we may call it, from the Potato Head character from Hasbro has been castrated. That's right. There is no more Mr. Potato Head. Therefore, there must also be no more Mrs. Potato Head.
Okay, I'll get this out of the way up front. All that Hasbro has done has changed the name of the line that was originally called Mr. Potato Head to just Potato Head, because it includes both Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head and a whole bunch of other potato heads. I think there's animals and children and all kinds of various variations on the Potato Head formula. So it doesn't make much sense for them to be collectively known as Mr. Potato Head, so they just took the Mr. off. That's all that's happened. That's all. So, why this is interesting, well, the fact that Hasbro has done this is not interesting, but why it's interesting that the right are going berserk about this is, well, there's a number of reasons why, but I think it's worth looking at, and it's worth looking at this particular little clip, because it shows what the right is framing it as now. Quite apart from the obvious, complaining about this totally meaningless event and trying to drum it up into something that, when it isn't anything. What I think is fascinating about this is the way in which he's doing it now. He's presenting it as if he's being sarcastic because it's unimportant. But the thing is, he's the one making it important. He's the one drumming it up into something important. You know, the way to really deal with this is just to ignore it. If you don't think it's important, don't cover it. And nobody on the left is talking about this because nobody cares. It's like, really, because it's really unimportant. So it's people like Jeremy here who finds it important enough to talk to and make his fans about and make a video about and get his panties in a bunch about it. Well, but he realizes the sort of absurdity of how petty and snowflakey that makes them, so they try and flip it the other way around and act as if something silly and petty is being done by a nebulous they, but it isn't. It's him who's doing the petty, silly, nonsense thing. It's total projection. As really the whole sort of snowflake concept is. It was a term coined by the right when they are the biggest snowflakes in the goddamn world.
This has been a spectacular backfire, masterclass in ridiculous corporate virtue signaling from a company that couldn't care less about its workers.
Oh, you care about workers, so you're coming out boldly in favour of unions then, are you? Oh, right, I didn't think so. Talk about virtue signalling, and then in the very next sentence he squeezes in a little virtue signal. But you know, I despise corporate pandering as much as the next person, probably more so, probably more than Jeremy does, really, because I don't really like corporations, and he does. But this isn't an example of that. It's just a simplification of a logo, basically, to better express their product line. It's literally a non-story.
But hey, look what it did. I mean, look at what Hasbro's been the last month. Falling off a cliff in February, right? What are we going to do? Let's get millions of dollars in free advertising in one day. That's what they did. They're getting millions of dollars in free advertising from morons.
Yeah, they are. That's the funniest thing Jeremy's ever said. They are literally getting millions of dollars of free advertising from morons, Jeremy. Jeremy, who do you think those morons are? Who do you think is literally currently giving them free advertising right now in a video? Oh my god.
Toy Story canceled. I mean, Barbie should have, I'm sorry, Barbie, they should have their gender removed. This is insanity. This is catering towards, look, and I've got to be honest with you here. I would be willing to bet the majority of the trans community doesn't support this.
Well, I'd be willing to guess that the majority of the trans community doesn't give a flaming fart about this. Now, what is actually happening here? Why is it that people like Jeremy care at all about a potato changing gender? Or at least, why are they pretending that they care? Well, it's because it's an effort to sell, and now, bear with me here, it's an effort to sell white supremacism to ordinary nerds. So, how does it work? Well, white supremacists, fascists, the extreme far-right in general, gather their power by drumming up fake threats from the outside, whether that's outside the country or outside your race or outside your religion. That's basically their modus operandi. They say, look at all these people out there who want to destroy us, they're coming over here, and the best way to fix this is to give us the power to take control and stop that from happening. It's white supremacism, it's Nazism 101. They need to figure out how to take that same idea and apply it to nerds on the internet, because the internet is full of nerds and it's an untapped resource. Well, it was. Now it's very much tapped. So what do nerds care more about than anything else? That's right, nostalgia. They care about Star Wars, and they care about their childhood toys, and they care about all of the things from Ready Player One, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, all that kind of stuff. So what if you could convince people that that was the land or whatever that needed protecting from these insidious outside influences that are trying to come in and subvert it, and we need to keep them out. There are all these women and SJWs and whoever else who want to come in and destroy our nostalgia and our pop culture. And so the best way of avoiding this is for you to give us power, for us to make sure that that doesn't happen. Rather, these things like pop culture, these things that, I love, they're probably pretty much the only thing I like about capitalism, that it's provided these. And that's not to say that these things wouldn't have been provided by something else, but that's a conversation for another day. However, these things are one of the few things we can enjoy about the system that we live in, that we get provided with some excellent content, like the Marvel movies, for example, aside from all of the underlying ethics of those. What these people do is get used to the notion that these things that you love, these things that you could even consider to be traditions, are under threat from an outside source. And once you've got somebody to accept that, then maybe you can get them to accept it about a wider political context, and that is really the game that Jeremy is playing. So any story that you can even remotely claim has to do with some kind of outside force, usually a left-wing one, trying to subvert the traditions of our nostalgia, these people will jump on it and push it relentlessly. That's why, and that's how, people like Jeremy are often the first step in the pipeline towards some extremely dangerous perspectives. And that's basically all that Jeremy the Quartering's channel is. Just endless videos of this same narrative. They're coming to take away your nostalgic things. The left is coming for you. When it's a load of old bollocks, but it's just endless video after video after video after video, drumming it into people's heads on what is, in one sense, supposed to be a nominally not political channel, a pop culture and, news channel. But it's just endless laundering of these extremely far-right opinions, really. Just sort of subtly hidden within something that most people would think is relatively petty and unimportant. And it is, but that's sort of the appeal, and it's why they can get away with keep doing it. And it's not just Jeremy. There are endless channels out there doing exactly the same thing. So what do I suggest if you're into these sorts of things, but you're sort of surrounded by this sort of right-wing content? Well, my recommendation is head over to Kevin Smith's channel. He does a great podcast where he talks about all of this sorts of stuff. Maybe not toys, but then who really gives a shit about plastic potato when you're over the age of 6? But he'll talk about, all the cool shows and movies and other things, and he doesn't feel the need to launder in Nazi talking points. And Mark Bernardin, his co-host, is awesome, and he offers a much more sort of critical and sarcastic sarcastic and biting perspective on these things, and he's not afraid to call things rubbish when they're rubbish. And both of them really know what they're talking about because they're people who make pop culture. They're writers and directors and comic book makers, creators. I'd recommend it. Go watch that instead because it's 10 times better than this shit. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you have managed to avoid COVID as well as your friends and family. I love you all. Goodbye.